This might be my favourite board game ever, and it does something impossible. It accurately represents the climate crisis and is still fun to play. To explain how, I filmed me playing it with some professional gamers.
Ooh, if anyone's got a holdy hand, what are those called again?
Policy.
The society tag.
Society tag.
And with a group of climate scientists.
I'm worried about Georgia.
I think we'll use the women's empowerment to destroy the youth climate movement.
This is Daybreak, a game from Matt Laycock, who you may know as the creator of Pandemic, and Matteo Menepace. And for transparency, I don't know these creators, they don't know I'm making this video, I just really love their game. In it, players take the reins of different regions of the world, the USA, Europe, China, and the rest of the world, and they have lots of tools at their disposal to combat the climate crisis. At the start of the game, each region is producing a ton of carbon emissions, from fossil fuel electricity generation, but also from industry, agriculture, transport, and various other sectors, as represented by these tokens. The main part of the game consists of turns playing cards from your hand to remove these emissions tokens, with each card representing a possible response to the climate crisis, ranging from decarbonising electricity supplies to restoring ecosystems, and even geoengineering. The cards have tags representing different areas of response, from social to ecological to energy, and a large part of the game is spent playing cards in stacks to either allow a card's ability to be activated or buffing the effect of a card. You only have 5 slots in which to play cards, and you can only activate a card's ability if it's on top of a stack. So there's lots of interesting decisions to be made and trade-offs to be had in how you decarbonize. Perhaps it's best to show you how the game plays with one of the games I recorded. So I borrowed the Games Night room from Yogscast Studios. Incidentally, if you like board games, definitely check out their Games Night channel. I'm in one of their Warhammer battle reports, and I introduced the game to 3 friends.
I am playing as the majority world.
America.
Europe.
And I'm China.
Each region has a different thematic starting hand of cards, but also a different mix of emissions to manage, and will grow by different amounts as the game progresses.
I think I'm going to discard this card to get 1 clean electricity, and then I'm going to cover this card with this one.
Brian, I'll use my special drawing rights to give you a resistance of your choosing.
You make it sound like Magic the Gathering.
But what I will do is I will tuck it behind my reforestation, which I can do once per turn, and I'll have 2 to 4 nature things, so we can add a tree.
So how much have we reduced our emissions by in turn 1?
I got rid of 1 of mine.
0.
I don't think I've reduced mine.
None. I'm not removing emissions, but I'd be gaining green energy. But right now I'm meeting the requirement.
Right now you will, but at the end of next turn, if you don't meet the requirement, I think you can edge it for a turn.
Okay.
Is that how it words it in the...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the exact wording, actually.
Climate edging.
As well as supporting decarbonisation in your own region, players can also play cards to support global projects which help everyone, often by allowing trade between players.
And how do we contribute to that global project?
So you tuck a card. So I actually have a card here that I could tuck underneath, but we'd need another
Is it
one.
looking for specific symbols?
Yes, you're looking for the money symbol.
Money symbol.
I'm going to discard that one instead, and I'll tuck my money one under there.
And players can take actions which limit the effects of crisis cards. Speaking of which, at the end of every turn, all players' remaining emissions tokens generate cute little carbon cubes, which are added to a global pool. Some are removed by ocean absorption and photosynthesis, and the remaining carbon cubes are added to the global thermometer. If you fill a band of the thermometer with carbon cubes, the temperature increases by 1/10 of a degree.
Tot up what your total emissions are. So I've got 25.
20.
17. Oh my god. Well, that's terrifying.
Yep. Oops. But that's our gross emissions. So the net emissions we need to subtract. So 7 of the big ones go. And then we've got another 5 can go and another 1. We've warmed the world by 1/10 of a degree, and then we've made some headway to the next 1/10 of a degree.
And as the temperature on the thermometer rises, more and more negative effects start occurring. You roll a dice to represent the chance of hitting global tipping points, such as the Amazon dying back or Arctic sea ice melting, once for each 1/10 of a degree on the thermometer. with each tipping point having a different effect. And you draw increasing numbers of crisis cards, representing the direct and indirect effects of climate change, ranging from geopolitical crises to wildfires to pandemics, and the interference of the fossil fuel industry, which makes players' jobs much harder. Something that happened repeatedly in the game with the climate scientists. Dan, do you want to flip over the last card?
Fossil fuel disinformation.
Oh, God. Oh, no. The game continues until either you've played 6 turns, the global thermometer reaches 2 degrees, or any one region is engulfed in crisis. Those are the bad endings. The good ending is if you can collectively bring the world to net zero. That's how you win. And it's important to note that you all win or you all lose. This game isn't competitive, it's collaborative. In fact, coordinating actions between players is absolutely key to victory, something that's very cleverly built into the design of the game.
So if I'm trying to convey something to you like the idea of global warming, rather than having 20,000 cards that people read text on, instead can you do it so that the mechanics themselves convey that information? There's a massively powerful message for me when I play that game in that the climate crisis is not about individual guilt, it's about collective action.
This is Professor Sam Illingworth of Edinburgh Napier University, who researches how we can use poetry and games to communicate science. Perhaps that's something you've never considered before, but games allow people who would otherwise maybe have nothing to do with science to learn and have conversations about it.
Unfortunately, we have created what I call hierarchies of intellect. So this idea of, I'm not a scientist, what do I know, my opinion's not really worthwhile. So we need to try and break down those hierarchies. When we're around the gaming table, we enter into a new set of social contracts. Our behaviours on the gaming table are different from away from the gaming table. Great example with a terrible game. Imagine we're playing Monopoly. In Monopoly, it's expected that I'm trying to bankrupt you. That is behaviour that is morally repugnant away from the gaming table, but a contract that we have entered into around the gaming table. It means that we can then start to have conversations at a non-hierarchical level that might not be possible away from the gaming table.
Right, so we're now on to turn 2.
Well, I can plant another tree.
Hey guys, China's got a major solar program. I'm role-playing this game.
Hang on, how far are you taking this?
I'm so scared for our planet right now.
Yeah, well, if we were in charge.
Yeah. My big stack is regulation.
Refrigerants is the single largest way we can reduce emissions as well, like as a single solution. So that does make sense.
I saw that card. That's so powerful.
Only 10 from China.
Really? Hang on, 8. And then what about your electricity ones?
Oh wait, those? Oh, I didn't do these in the first round.
All right, well you gotta. Oh no!
Oh no! I did it wrong.
Is this how it often goes at climate meetings, where they're like, "Oh, this dirty energy."
Oh, we forgot about the methane.
Forgot about that.
Okay, so that's all of our emissions.
Okay.
That's a lot of emissions.
So basically, last turn China was hiding their emissions, and then it all came out the next year. I really am role-playing China.
Fill that band. And we fill
Oh,
that band.
that's concerning.
Yep, that happened quite quickly.
To be very clear, other games about, or set within, climate change exist. In video games, you have Final Fantasy VII, for example, but also the Civ series, Terra Invicta, and Hearth Earth Socialism, to name just a few. You even have escape rooms like Emergency, and, of course, board games. Settlers of Catan has a new expansion about climate change. Professor Illingworth designed a deck-building game called Carbon City Zero, and there's also Evolution and CO2 Second Chance, which I really want to check out. But in my opinion, Daybreak is the best game I've ever played about the climate crisis. There's so many little things I love. The artwork, for one thing. All the cards have beautiful art. I really like the style, even the ones that are associated with negative effects. And this, in particular, I want this on my wall. There's no plastic anywhere in the game, including its packaging. Hell, the dice are made of sustainably sourced wood. Each card comes with a QR code that takes you to a page on the game's website that tells you more about that topic and suggests further reading. And I love that the game puts all the options on the table. It's just clear that some of them are much easier to implement than others. Rolling out wind and solar, for example, is pretty easy to do even in the early game, while nuclear does generate lots of electricity, if you have the tags to actually activate the card. Decarbonizing electricity is much easier than removing other forms of emissions. And you can suck more carbon out of the atmosphere instead of bringing down your emissions, and it's much easier to do so through natural means than artificial ones, but it's nowhere near enough to offset everybody's emissions. And then there's...
Oh, I've got a load of geoengineering cards, I'll know. Once per round, you roll this dice and you add 1 for every geoengineering thing in its stack, and then you can effectively negate the amount of temperature bands that we have hit. So if we roll well, we could actually get rid of 2 temperature bands. But if we roll low, we add more crisis cards.
Oh, I'm trying to. Yeah, do it.
I think that's too risky, personally. I don't know what other people feel about that.
I've got one as well, and I agree.
At some stage, I think I'm going to have a machine that produces a lot of green energy, and then I can give it
you can like
to
outsource
people.
It. Amazing.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to play my community wind project over universal healthcare, which feels very odd. Lets me gain 1 green energy once per round. I really want to get rid of my factories. These 2 cards to remove 2 factories from my emissions.
Okay, so if I do that, but I put that up and get rid of the car.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 2 down.
16 from the rest of the world.
14.
11 from me.
Oh, okay, these are lower numbers.
Oh, it does push us over.
So it does push us over, unfortunately. It does mean that things are going to start going a bit worse.
Okay, but I mentioned earlier that I also played the game with a bunch of climate scientists from the University of Bristol's Climate Dynamics group. And I asked them after the game what they thought of how the climate crisis was represented in Daybreak.
For me personally, as a climate scientist, it was a bit too much like work. We do this all the time. I think when you take the climate crisis in isolation, this is an amazing game, and I think the designers of this should really be praised for that.
I liked the tipping points a lot. There were some things on it that a lot of people may not think about, like thawing permafrost, I think often gets overlooked. Also the specificities of like the different tipping points having different impacts. So like some are going directly towards, temperature, some are going towards those crisis cards. I thought that was very cool.
I think the major problem I have with it maybe is that once you reach throwdown, then you don't have to worry about anything else because the game is over. I don't think that's actually a good representation because we should not just stop until we get there. We should keep going.
Everything has an effect on everything else, so I think that is quite realistic.
The thing that really stood out to me most was the representation of how like the society cards are representative of like 25% of the deck. When you're on the science side of it, if you're doing climate modeling things, sometimes you can tend to overlook the society impacts and things like community ownership that I have here, or circular economy, just like things that sort of directly impact people. Resilience volunteers came in clutch many times.
Well, as did women's empowerment.
Women's empowerment, right. And so I like that it's a climate game, but it's not ignoring the human aspect of it.
The 2 I really liked, so Loss and Damage Fund, if it wasn't obvious. This is an incredibly flexible card. You can use it to mitigate any of these crises. In reality, it might not be so flexible, but it's a very great thing to have that as a global fund. The other one is a bit of a sort of left-wing one, but it's this well-being budget, and the health of our community is intrinsically linked with the climate change problem. And so actually just making a fitter, healthier and happier community would do wonders for climate change. So
we need to reduce emissions by 7. That's all we need to do in order to reach drawdown. And then we just need to survive this lot of crises if we can do that.
I'm putting net zero buildings under my stack of community wind, which will allow me once per round to gain a green energy and also infrastructure protection.
This mega stack is just dominating the game a bit.
I could give you this one, you put it on top, and then you can get rid of 2 bad energy.
Yeah, I really need that.
Oh my god.
Amazing.
I've just seen how much clean energy.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Well, look, because this, discard 1 card, you get 2 green energies per each solar panel. I got 3 of those, so discard 1 card, I get 6.
Ooh. Is everybody finished?
That's all I can do.
Yeah.
Right, so I've got 12 emissions.
4.
I have 10.
Of the big boys, we can remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Woohoo!
Okay, so we've hit drawdown, but now we've got to survive this bit. We roll this dice 4 times. Okay, ocean acidifications. Major weather systems. Did it finally oh no!
Oh no, that's,
that's bad!
Here comes the crisis train.
Okay, desertification, that's fine.
Oh, we get dessert.
Amazon diamond. Okay, that could have gone a lot worse. I'm quite tense now. Displacement. Global financial crisis. Next round. Doesn't matter. Freshwater crisis. The player with the lowest ecological resilience loses 1 social resilience. Okay.
We'll do that.
So we survived that round.
Uh-huh.
That means I think that we've beaten climate change.
Hey!
I'm not going to say it was easy.
Yeah.
It was very stressful.
I don't think we were making another turn.
I think Daybreak does something impossible. It, within the limitations of still being a game, accurately represents the climate crisis and what a necessary response to it looks like, while still being fun to play. That shouldn't be possible. It presents a complex puzzle that is so satisfying to solve, and the mechanisms by which you solve it in the game teach you about how we can do the same thing in real life.
Okay, what did you think of it as a game?
I thought it was a stressful game, but a very enjoyable game. I liked building the big stacks. I liked changing up the board and the world. The crisis was terrifying. Having to make the difficult choices as well. I guess I'll get rid of universal healthcare to get this useful thing in. Trying to figure out what to prioritize was kind of interesting.
I really enjoyed it. I like that everyone was sort of working together, and it's not just, you know, black and white. You do this and it's good. You do this. There was that element of like, oh, I do need to, you know, have some give and take.
What's I think really good with this game is that everything you're doing does mirror something that actually reflects, you know, the climate crisis. Just the logical nightmare of having to organise all of your cards, I imagine, is exactly what trying to come up with climate policy in government is like.
Because you can't do everything.
Because you can't do everything, and also it's just so complicated, so that matches that quite well.
In a way, sort of like seeing the different tags and the cards and the things that you're deciding on, that helped me kind of realise, like, oh, like you telling me about the refrigeration, like more regulation on sort of things like that.
I mean, it's one of those things that's very easy to be like, just start doing this. But when you actually look at it, you're like, oh no, there is a lot of, like, you can't just get rid of one type of energy overnight. There's obviously going to be that process.
In real life, our response to the climate crisis will need basically all of the solutions represented in Daybreak. And most of those solutions will require the support of the public through voting for political parties who promise to enact such legislation. As such, science communication around the climate crisis is key. And it can't just be through traditional means like books and TV. That's going to leave some communities behind. If you want to reach everyone, you need to use new formats to reach niche audiences with information about the problem and its solutions. And games are an important way of doing just that. And so originally I was going to finish this video by describing Daybreak as the perfect educational game. But when I mentioned this to Professor Illingworth, he had this to say.
We don't want to have educational games. We do not want edu games. We want games that children, adults, anyone want to play of their own volition. Any game that is designed to tackle any topic or any game that's used that already exists, like for the climate crisis, for example, we want to have games that are fun.
And, well, would you want to play the game again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'd play this again, absolutely.
Now, you may be curious to see how a group of climate scientists played this game. So we recorded the entire game, and it's available to watch in its entirety, including some interesting discussion mid-game of specific cards, right now on Nebula. If you don't know, Nebula is the streaming service that's owned and operated by a bunch of video and podcast creators, including me. It launched in 2019 and since has become the most interesting, fastest growing independent video platform on the internet, with original programming financed by our subscribers, including narrative feature films, documentaries, game shows, and even a play, which was excellent. I was lucky enough to see it. The idea of Nebula is that if we, as creators, can control how our videos are financed and distributed, we can both make higher quality stuff and offer a better viewing experience for our audiences. By doing away with advertisers, you get a distraction-free viewing experience, and your subscription instead finances centralized tools for us creators, allowing us to become more than the sum of our parts. Smaller creators get elevated in production value to the next level, and all creators get a bit of financial flexibility which we can invest in our passion projects, like this video, which took an awful lot of resources and time to make. There is a vast library of exclusive original content available on Nebula. My exclusives include the Game with Climate Scientists, several video essays, extended interviews with scientists, and an entire course on how I make videos about science. And that's just my stuff. If you want a recommendation from the rest of the library, then I particularly enjoy watching Lindsay Ellis's videos. If you want to join a platform that is pushing entertainment forwards, that is allowing creators to make bigger, better projects that they simply couldn't be making otherwise, and get access to high quality, exclusive, thoughtful videos from hundreds of creators, then you should join Nebula. You can do so at nebula.tv/Simon Clark, and if you use that link in the description, you'll get 40% off an annual subscription. That link again for 40% off, nebula.tv/Simon Clark. Check it out below. This video would not have been possible without the support of my patrons. Patrons get access to exclusive content every month, including a behind-the-scenes vlog, and from this video, an extended interview with Professor Illingworth about his research. If you sign up at patreon.com/SimonOxPhys, you also get early access to videos, and producer tier patrons and higher, the names that you're seeing on screen right now, get to vote on a video topic every month. I've shuffled my patron deck, and I draw Liam, Matsi, Theo, because one letter name invites ridicule, Colin B, and Daniel Rafferty. I'd say that's a pretty solid hand. Thank you for supporting my Patreon. If you like the look of Daybreak, then I'll leave a link to its website in the description. Again, not sponsored, just really like it. There will also be links down there to Bryony, Ravs, and Dom, as well as to Professor Illingworth and the Climate Dynamics group at the University of Bristol. Thank you all for being part of the video. If you'd like to watch something else from me next, then here's 2 videos I prepared earlier. If you enjoyed this video, please do pop it a like and maybe give it a share. And that just leaves me to say thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.